Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Licensing and Regulatory Committee, Tuesday, 25th of March here at County Hall. Croeso i'r cyfarfod bore yma yn Cyngor y Sir yn Brynbiga. I'm Tudor Thomas and I chair Licensing and Regulatory, so I'll now take us to the agenda. First item, apologies for absence.
No apologies received, Chair.
Thanks. Secondly, declarations of any interest. None? No. Third item now, to confirm the following minutes. And a number of two subcommittee meeting minutes. The Licensing and Regulatory Subcommittee minutes dated 24th of January 2025. People happy with those? Yes. Okay. And then the next subcommittee, 3.2, Licensing and Regulatory Committee minutes dated the 28th of January 2025. Again, are people happy with those? Yes? No dissension? Okay, thank you. We'll now go to the main agenda item. Item number 4, which is the Licensing Act 2025 policy statement. Having read through it, it's obviously a very hefty document with changes listed in red. But I'm going to hand over now to licensing and to the Chief Officer for Social Care, who is responsible for licensing and regulatory matters. So I'll hand over to Jane Rogers. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning, members. Just by way of very brief introduction, members will be aware that this is the second time the policy has been in committee. Every 5 years, the Council needs to renew its licensing policy to ensure it's up to date with any changes in legislation or contextual information. We brought it into committee initially to alert members that the report, the policy update, was going out for full consultation with required authorities. The people that we consult with, the organisations that we consult with, are listed in the report at 3.2. The consultation period ended on the 15th of March. We didn't receive any comments back from the consultation. However, Aneurin Bevan University Health Board did provide some updated information which that they would like to be included within the policy, setting out some of their data and evidence and information around the harms of alcohol and other issues. And that has been, we only received that very late in the day, so that's now been circulated to members. For ease of reference, the policy changes were set out in red so that members could see where the changes had been made and additions had been inserted. So that's pretty much it by way of introduction. The next stage would be for the policy to go to full council. It's a policy, so it needs full council approval. And that's my introduction, Chair.
Thanks for that. As I said, it's quite a lengthy document. This is something that licensing and regulatory have to review every 5 years. And as has been said, this now goes to full county council for approval. So it's not something that we can approve for it to go forward. It has to go to the full county council. Are there any comments or concerns that anybody wants to raise? Councillor Edwards, yeah.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Jane, for taking us through the summary. Looking at that summary, I mean, following the consultation with the relevant public bodies, it mentions on the summary statement, I think it's 3.3, no comments have been received on this policy, apart from the follow-up stats that Aneurin Bevan have provided since then. Now, as this policy is for a 5-year period, Can you clarify if it's common to receive no comments from a consultation on a proposed draft licensing policy? And do consultees, at the very least, acknowledge receipt of the draft policy and confirm that they wish to make no comment?
Thank you very much for the question. It is common, as I understand it, but I will bring in my colleague Samantha Wynne from licensing.
Yeah, we obviously, when we send it out for some consultation, it's all done via email to save on postage. We send it out to all our premises licence holders as well. We never get anything back off any of them. The standard or the statutory consultees, we will get read receipts, and they may come back with, we've got no comment to make. But to be honest, I suppose they have that many off all the different authorities that they wouldn't actually individually send a response to everybody.
Okay, thank you for that. Out of curiosity, do we know how many were contacted? You've also already mentioned the means by email, and they've sent read receipts. Also, under 3.5, let me just check this again. A review of the policy was conducted with licensed officers in the other councils in South East Wales. And just from my understanding, does this mean that we'll have identical policies to them? We've all been working on the same policy to make it as perfect as possible?
Right, so I have done a little bit of homework on this. So there's a recommended template from DCMS and the Home Office, and they are trying to get it so England and Wales will sort of have the same policies. What happens, I think, with the 5 local authorities is that we all do the same, and then obviously you look at it individually for your own area, so you'll change certain bits from Monmouthshire to Torfaen, but we all do try to be the same, so it's easier for applicants in different areas.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Edwards. And we move now then, we've got a hand up. Councillor Alistair Neil, would you like to come in?
Thank you, Chair, and good morning. Just a couple of things, if I may, in terms of just clarification. First of all, looking at the Section 7 focus on health harm from consumption of alcohol, those statements that follow in that section in red, so I'm assuming they're new and significantly updated, if not completely new. They're well documented in terms of the concerns that one might have over alcohol, the relationship between consumption of excess alcohol and health harm. I just question the validity of this being included in a licensing and regulatory policy document, any more than, for example, other serious health concerns such as smoking or air pollution or even sugar consumption. To what extent are these matters that relate to, in terms of health harm, relate to licensing, specifically around alcohol? And really just appreciate some clarification, and completely recognizing that there are all sorts of concerns around health that one could narrate and list and develop policies around, but to what extent they relate to licensing. And the second one is a second query regarding Section 9, the licensing objectives, and they are stated as prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. There is no statement there to support the local economy. So we will very often be presented with, as a licensing committee, be presented with applications for one thing or another, which might be at a very personal level, the development of an individual's economic situation, or from a business perspective, the development of their business options. And we don't have anything relating to that in our remit, it would appear. The licensing objectives are very much about prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and protection of children from harm. So I appreciate just understanding really why it is that we don't have something that is presented as an objective from licensing about the support for the local economy. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Neil. Hand over to Jane Rogers, Chief Officer. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Neil. My colleague Sam will come in, but just in terms of the broader view around the first question, the reason that we go into a bit more detail around alcohol is that's what we license. So it's concerned with things that we license, whereas other harmful things we don't license. And then the second question, the 4 objectives in Section 9 are lifted from the statute. So that again is down to our sort of regulatory and legislative requirements. The objectives there are those that are within the Act. But Sam might want to come in with a little more detail.
Sorry, I was just going to say regarding the alcohol and the harm, they're actually a statutory consultee in Iron Bevan, which is why they're included, and it is right. We're only dealing with the things that we licence. And the licensing objectives are what are actually stated within the Act, so we can't add anything. So this is what the Act tells us we've got to look at, so that's what we have to do.
Thanks for that. One thing I would say is I've licensed this, chaired this licensing committee now for 2 years, and we've done a number of extension of hours, etc. And in my mind, those objectives are the objectives that we have to adhere to. And we would all agree things like, for example, gambling and so on can have seriously harmful effects. So can alcohol. And it's not our sort of duty here to judge. Consumption of alcohol is a perfectly, as it were, legitimate activity. But on the other hand, it must be regulated to make sure that it doesn't harm other people's way of life. And obviously we're not here to either certainly not to encourage it, particularly with people who overconsume and then obviously have related health issues. If you look at the stats that Irene Bevan, now they're quite late coming in, but if you look at the stats that come in from Irene Bevan, it is pretty stark really in terms of the harmful effects of alcohol, but that's a broader issue for society. But from our point of view, I think it's good to have this information so that we can it can inform our decisions, but at the end of the day, we go to those 4 principles, and in reality, we can't take into account. It might be good for a particular business to sell more alcohol or for longer hours, etc., but it might well affect the people living in that area. So, we can't really take into account business concerns. By the same token, we can't take in business concerns for somebody who wants to drive a taxi but is not suitable. So I think this document sets out, very clearly, what we should do. But thanks, Alistair, for that question. It's a really good one.
Chair, may I just do a quick follow-up on this?
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, thank you. I completely understand that there's no suggestion that there is not a link between overconsumption of alcohol and potential impact on harmful impact on health. Of course, that is very well documented. It's whether or not that necessarily should be within the scope of licensing describing the harm and the harmful effect on health. I understand it's something that we license, but for example, having a different approach to opening hours might have a beneficial effect on the way in which alcohol is consumed, and the relationship between the two might be extremely important to avoid the rush of consumption of alcohol. The point in the question around supporting the local economy was quite a separate point to the question around harmful effects of alcohol. It was really to ask that more general point: do we have a role in supporting the local economy? So I completely accept that there are statutory requirements set for us, as are set out in the section that lays out the objectives for licensing committee. However, are we not able to, as an individual authority, identify an additional or other additional objectives, which might well include support for the local economy? Because it does look like what we are very much geared to is prevention and protection, rather than supporting development, growth, economic vitality. So it's really whether or not we could add something in whilst accepting the statutory requirements. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Neil, for that. I'm going to hand over to Julian Sanders now, our legal advisor, just for a brief input. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Neil. Yes, I think any proposal to add an additional criteria to the policy objectives must be considered by the licensing department, and then possibly included for consideration at the next committee hearing. Obviously, this report is based upon the statutory objectives, and there's not been any prior request for any additional objectives to be included. But that's noted, Councillor Neil, and that can be now considered, and it can be determined whether an additional objective is included regarding support for local community.
Thanks, Julian, for that. I'll hand back now to Jane Rogers, Chief Officer. Thanks.
Thank you, yes, and thanks for the input of the legal advisor. I think from the decisions about whether you're granting a licence, we'd have to remain with the 4 policy objectives in the statute. So we can probably have a further conversation with this outside, but my understanding of how the licensing, the granting of licensing or otherwise, we would, I think, have to stick to the statutory requirements, but it is something that we will certainly give some further consideration to together with legal outside of the committee. Okay,
thank you for that. I think that clarifies it. Obviously, it is driven by statute, but it's a conversation that perhaps can go on, outside this, further to this meeting. Thanks. Go now then to Councillor Tony Eason.
Hello. Yeah. Good morning. Good morning, Chair. My question is around zoning and licensing hours 5.1 and 5.7 in particular. There's an emphasis there that the licensing hours might be more tend to vary later in town areas as opposed to country areas. Yet you also say there that they won't be used as a bargaining tool. What is the rationale really behind that in terms of the country pubs? Because in the south of the county, 3 pubs have recently closed, and a 4th one is likely to go on the market shortly. Would restricting licensing hours in country areas be detrimental to those businesses, do you believe?
As a licensing authority, we would never restrict hours. They actually tell you not to really do zoning because, of course, they want everybody to come out at different times is what the Act wanted, which is why they made it 24 hours. So they said they would have some pubs close at 11, some pubs close at 12, some pubs close at 1, which means it's easier for the police to police. We wouldn't do zoning. That's not something that we would do.
You wouldn't do zoning?
No, the authority is when you actually, if I can just go back to
that's in red though, that's the only thing.
Yeah, it's in red because that's actually come from statutory guidance. So that's just what the guidance is telling us, that they acknowledge different licensing strategies that may be appropriate. The licensing authority power to make decisions about the hours during which premises can conduct licensing activities as part of the implementation of its licensing policy statement. And it says that licensing authorities are best placed to make decisions about appropriate opening hours in their areas based on their local knowledge. Now, when we send the application out for consultation, it goes to the police and environmental health. Now, they're the ones with the local knowledge because they would be the ones who's had the complaints received if there's been noise issues. So anything regarding hours wouldn't be for us as the licensing department to say that hours need to be changed. It would be up to the statutory consultees like the police and environmental health. And because there has been issues there, they can't just turn around and say because the pub's out in the sticks, it can close at 2 a.m. because it's not going to bother anybody. If there's been issues in that pub and the police have been called or environmental health have had noise issues, then if they've applied for a 2 a.m. licence, it might be that they'd only get till midnight. But when we come to a committee decision, that would be when someone's made an objection, and it's for the members then on the licensing subcommittee to actually make a decision on the hours. It's not something as a general, as a local authority, we would turn around and say, right, we're going to make sure everybody closes at 12. It's not something as an authority we would do. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. Thanks. Going on then to Councillor Jackie Strong.
Thank you, Chair. I'm quite interested in the public spaces protection orders, and I see in sort of 32 and 32.1 it's all in red. So is that a new addition to the policy? And can I ask if we've got any of those, or have we had any of those orders in place in Monmouthshire over the last 5 years?
Sorry, yeah. So if it's in red, it means it's been added to the policy. And I did look to see if we had any. And there is an area on our website, the community safety team actually deal with it. There was about 9 on there, and most of them had expired. So there was one for the Abergavenny Skate Park, Monmouth Town, Aber Lower Town, Bailey Park, Byfield Lane, Chepstow Leisure Centre and Welsh Street. But most of them have expired. And I'm assuming that's up to the community safety team to pick up on.
Can I just cut, so that wouldn't come to licensing then? No, it would just be the order from the community safety team, but it's included in the policy. I just wanted to sort of clarify that in my mind, so thank you.
If I can just clarify as well, the policy is how we treat applicants, and we want them to read the policy before they put an application in. So we want them to read it all and take everything that's in there into consideration when they put their application in. So the things like alcohol harm and the orders that we've just discussed, if they're fully aware of that, when they're making their application, they can put conditions in. If they're in an area where we've had issues, they can put conditions in on their operating schedule to show how they're going to run their business in an area where we've had problems. So yeah, so the policy is all about just letting them know what we expect.
Okay, thanks. Does that answer your question? Yes. Any other questions or comments about this policy before we send it forward to full council? Councillor Easton, do you want to come back?
I was going to ask a question about Martin's Law. That's a new policy coming in. Could you
Can you put your microphone on, please?
Sorry, Chair, yeah. It's to do with 12.8 Martin's Law. Where are we with Martin's Law? How will it affect this authority and people who operate within the authority's boundaries?
Thank you very much for the question. And of course, yes, Martin's Law has come in to effect since the previous policy, licensing policy, was written. Martin's Law is regarding how premises and so forth would take mitigations against terrorism and counter-terrorism, and how emergencies such as that would be responded to. So again, it's included because an applicant may want to consider that issue within their application. If it was, for example, an event, a large event, they would need to have in their sort of planning how they would respond, how they would prevent, how their arrangements are such that would counter risks around acts of terrorism. So it's in the policy statement because that's now a requirement.
Is there a minimum number of people? Is it
Sorry, can I just add as well that when people put in their ESAG notifications, the Event Safety Advisory Group, if it's a large event, they will then do the Martin's Law and they will then do the counter-terrorism assessment. So they'll get their staff to watch this training, which I tried to get on yesterday, but you've got to have an ID and pay for it. But they will get their staff to do that, and it will form part of their ESAG. And ESAG, when they put their notification in, ESAG will say, yes, when you do it, you must make sure that all your staff are fully aware of the counter-terrorism policy.
Thanks. Any further comments or questions? Either in the chamber or online. I can't see any hands up at the moment. Thanks. Well, thanks for your inputs and questions and comments, on this very lengthy document, and thanks obviously to licensing for the work involved in putting this document together. And it's been useful to have the new additions set out in red, so that we can, you can actually see what the differences are. This policy now, unless anybody is strongly objecting, this policy will now go forward for consideration and at full council, because it's only full council that can fully approve this policy. Right, thanks then, thanks for that. So we've come to the end of the main bit of the agenda. Just the next meeting now, it's going to be Tuesday the 20th of May 2025 at 10 o'clock, obviously here in the chamber, but also online. So thanks for your help and inputs this morning, and I declare the meeting now closed. Thanks. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you.
Thank you.